I never thought a 6-year-old could destroy an entire family with just 11 words and a piece of paper. But that's exactly what happened at our family reunion last July when my daughter Rosalie walked up to my cousin Jenny with something that would change everything. Let me back up for just a second. I'm Nadine, 34 years old, mother of 2, and what my family calls the peacekeeper. Now, you know the type. Always smoothing over arguments, bringing desserts to every gathering, sending thank you cards for thank you cards. My husband Derek is 36, a firefighter who has this incredible ability to stay calm when everyone else is losing their minds. We have 2 kids, Theo, who's 8 and obsessed with dinosaurs, and Rosalie, 6 years old with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile that melts hearts. Then there's my cousin Jenny, 38, married to Preston, the investment banker, mother to twins Addison and Blake. Jenny's the one with the perfect blowout at 7 in the morning, the one who posts those family photos where everyone's wearing white linen on the beach. She's been the family's golden child since we were kids, and she never lets anyone forget it. That afternoon at my parents' lake house in Michigan should have been perfect. The July sun was hitting the water just right, making it sparkle like diamonds. Kids were laughing on the dock, splashing each other with lake water. The smell of Dad's famous barbecue ribs filled the air, mixing with Mom's fresh-baked apple pie cooling on the windowsill. 3 generations of Caldwells had gathered for our annual reunion, 50-something relatives strong, all pretending we actually liked each other for one weekend a year. I was in the kitchen helping Mom with her legendary potato salad when Jenny started. She always starts something. This time, she was holding court on the patio, her voice carrying that special tone she uses when she wants everyone to hear her being casually cruel. You know, some of us actually research our partner's genetic history before having children, she announced, swirling her wine glass like she was in a movie. Preston and I did full ancestry profiles, medical histories, even genetic marker tests. We knew exactly what we were bringing into this world. My mother's hand stilled on the knife she was using to chop celery. Through the window, I could see Derek on the patio, his jaw tight as he watched our kids playing. Jenny continued, her voice getting louder. I mean, look at Nadine's children. Sweet kids, really, but Theo has those green eyes. Nobody in Derek's family has green eyes. And Rosalie's hair? That texture doesn't match either, parent. She laughed, that tinkling fake laugh she'd practiced since high school. Her kids don't even know who their real father is. The words hit like a slap. Relatives started whispering behind their hands. My brother Cameron's mouth fell open. Aunt Gloria tried to shush Jenny, but weakly, the way she always did. Uncle Pete just stared at his beer bottle like it held the secrets of the universe. My children were right there. Theo's face scrunched up in confusion as he looked between Derek and me. Mom, what does cousin Jenny mean? Dad is our real dad, right? Before I could answer, before I could even process the rage and humiliation burning through my chest, something strange happened. Derek wasn't angry. He was almost smiling. This quiet, knowing smile I'd seen him wear exactly once before, when he'd caught our neighbor stealing our packages and had already set up a camera to catch him. Derek bent down and whispered something in Rosalie's ear. She nodded solemnly, the way she did when given an important mission like feeding the goldfish or bringing Daddy his work boots. Then she skipped toward the house, her pink backpack bouncing on her shoulders. Derek, what are you doing? I hissed at him. Trust me, he said, taking my hand. Sometimes people who throw stones need to check their own glass houses. Jenny was still going, describing how she'd researched Preston's family tree back to the Mayflower, how their twins had documented pure lineage, how some people just didn't care about these things, but she could never be so careless with her children's future. That's when Rosalie came back out, clutching her backpack with determination. She marched through the crowd of relatives like a tiny soldier on a mission. She stopped right in front of Jenny, looked up at her with those big brown eyes, and said the words that would shatter Jenny's perfect world. Cousin Jenny, Daddy told me to ask you about your secret sister. Then my 6-year-old daughter pulled out a birth certificate from her little pink backpack. The reunion went completely, utterly silent. The Caldwell family reunion was supposed to be sacred. Every July for the past 40 years, we'd gather at my parents' lake house in Michigan, a sprawling property my grandfather built with his own hands after coming back from Korea. The house sat on 5 acres of prime waterfront with a private dock stretching into Lake Charlevoix and a boathouse that held 3 generations' worth of fishing stories and first kisses. I grew up spending every summer here with Jenny. We were only 4 years apart, close enough that people often mistook us for sisters. We'd catch fireflies in mason jars, paint each other's nails with stolen polish from Aunt Gloria's bathroom, and swear we'd be best friends forever while making friendship bracelets from embroidery thread. Back then, Jenny was different. She was fun and wild and didn't care that her knees were always scraped or that her hair was a mess from swimming all day. Everything changed when she met Preston Whitfield III at her sorority, formal senior year. Suddenly, Jenny discovered designer handbags and charity galas. She learned to pronounce quinoa correctly and started caring about thread counts. When she married Preston in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses, I was her maid of honor, standing there in a bridesmaid dress that cost $2,000, watching my cousin transform into someone I didn't recognize. My path was different. I married Derek right after college in a ceremony in my parents' backyard. Same lake house, same family, but with wildflowers instead of imported orchids, and my grandmother's wedding dress instead of Vera Wang. Derek and I both became teachers initially, though he later switched to firefighting when Thea was born because the pay was better and someone needed to be home during summer breaks. The family dynamic had shifted over the years into an unspoken hierarchy. At the top sat Uncle Pete, Jenny's father, who'd made his fortune in commercial real estate. He never let anyone forget he'd paid for the last 3 reunion catering bills and the new roof on the boathouse. Aunt Gloria floated beside him like an ornamental bird, always perfectly dressed, always slightly medicated on her nerve pills. My parents, Diane and Robert, occupied the middle ground. Dad had been a high school principal for 30 years, Mom a nurse. Respectable, stable, but not wealthy. They were the ones who actually maintained the lake house, who organized every reunion, who remembered everyone's birthdays and food allergies. Then there was Grandma Lucille, 89 years old and sharp enough to cut glass with her observations. She lived in the guest cottage year-round now, refusing to move to some depressing facility where they treat you like you're already dead. She knew every family secret, every buried scandal, every forgotten promise. She watched us all with those keen blue eyes, occasionally dropping comments that made the adults shift uncomfortably in their seats. The reunion followed the same script every year. Friday night was arrival and casual pizza. Saturday was the big barbecue, with Dad manning the grill and Mom orchestrating sides like a 4-star general. Sunday was leftovers and departures, everyone promising to stay in touch better, no one actually meaning it. This year felt different from the moment we arrived. Jenny had been particularly insufferable on the family group chat, posting photos of Addison and Blake's acceptance into some exclusive private school, their European vacation, Preston's promotion. Every message felt like a dig at the rest of us mere mortals. Did you see Jenny bought the twins matching horses? My brother Cameron had texted me privately. Actual horses. For 9-year-olds. The tension had been building all Saturday morning. Jenny critiqued Mom's fruit salad for not being organic. She mentioned 4 times that their nanny was European trained. She asked me if I'd considered getting Rosalie's ears fixed because they stuck out a little, then immediately followed up with, "But I suppose not, everyone notices these things." Derek had been uncharacteristically quiet, helping Dad with the grill, playing catch with Theo, pushing Rosalie on the tire swing Grandpa had hung in 1982. But I caught him having hushed conversations with Grandma Lucille, both of them glancing at Jenny and shaking their heads. The patio where Jenny would soon make her announcement about my children's paternity was set up with 3 long picnic tables covered in red checkered tablecloths. Mason jars filled with wildflowers served as centerpieces. It should have been picture perfect, the kind of scene Jenny herself would Instagram with some quote about family being everything. Instead, it became the stage for Jenny's cruelest performance yet, the one where she questioned my children's legitimacy in front of 50 relatives while eating my mother's potato salad and drinking wine from the vineyard. She wouldn't stop talking about discovering in Napa. She had no idea that Derek had been preparing for this moment for weeks, that Grandma Lucille had finally decided enough was enough, and that sometimes the family secrets you bury have a way of surfacing at exactly the right moment. Jenny's voice carried across the patio like a poison-tipped arrow finding its mark. I'm just saying, Nadine's kids don't even look like Derek. Theo has those green eyes, and nobody in Derek's family has green eyes. I've met his parents, his siblings. They all have brown eyes. Every single one. The potato salad turned to ash in my mouth. Around me, relatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Cousin Mark suddenly became very interested in his phone. Aunt Barbara started aggressively cutting her hamburger into tiny pieces. The only sound was the distant laughter of kids playing by the water, blissfully unaware that their parents' world was imploding on the patio. "Jenny, that's inappropriate," my mother said, her nurse voice emerging, the one that could quiet a room full of emergency patients. But Jenny was on a roll now, fueled by her third glass of wine and an audience. "Oh, Diane, I'm not saying anything everyone hasn't already thought. I mean, look at Rosalie's hair texture. Derek has that coarse Irish hair, Nadine's is pin straight, but Rosalie has these waves that came from nowhere." My father set down his beer bottle hard enough to make the table shake. "Jennifer, you need to stop talking right now." "I'm just being honest, Uncle Robert. Something this family never is. We all tiptoe around the truth." Jenny stood up, walking closer to where Derek and I sat. "When Preston and I decided to have children, we did genetic testing. We mapped our entire family trees. We knew exactly what we were creating. Can you say the same, Nadine?" Derek's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. Not in anger, but in something else. Reassurance? Warning? I couldn't tell. Theo had wandered over from the kids' table, his dinosaur t-shirt stained with ketchup. "Mom, why is Cousin Jenny talking about Dad? Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, buddy," Derek said, his voice steady as granite. "Cousin Jenny just likes to talk." Jenny laughed, that sharp sound that could cut steel. "See? This is what I mean. Lying to children instead of being honest with them. My twins know exactly who they are, where they come from. I had Preston's ancestry traced back to the American Revolution. His great-great-great-grandfather signed the Declaration of Independence. Actually, he was a bootlegger who changed his name," Grandma Lucille said from her chair in the corner. "But do go on, dear." Jenny's face flushed red, but she pressed forward. "The point is, we know. We have documentation, certificates, proof." She turned to look directly at me. "Some of us actually plan our families instead of just hoping for the best." "You're drunk," Cameron, my brother, said flatly. "Sit down before you say something you can't take back." "I'm not drunk, I'm honest. There's a difference. And honestly, I think Nadine trapped Derek with someone else's baby, and he was too nice to question it." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the kids at the dock had stopped playing. My hands shook as I stood up, ready to grab my children and leave, ready to never speak to Jenny again, ready to burn every bridge this family had built over 40 years. But Derek pulled me back down. "Wait," he whispered. "Just wait." Uncle Pete finally found his voice. "Jennifer, apologize to your cousin right now." "For what?" "For saying what everyone's thinking? Look at them, Dad. Really look at those kids. Theo's jawline, Rosalie's nose. They don't match." Aunt Gloria was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Jenny, please, this is family." "Exactly." Jenny's voice rose to a near shout. "Family, which means we should be able to discuss the fact that my cousin's children might not be her husband's. I mean, Jesus, Nadine, you dated that Mitchell guy right before you married Derek. The timeline is suspicious." That's when I noticed Derek wasn't angry anymore. He was almost smiling, this quiet expression I'd seen him wear when he knew something no one else did. He stood up slowly like he had all the time in the world. "Jenny, you seem very concerned about family bloodlines," he said calmly. "Someone has to be," she snapped. "Interesting. Because last month, when I was helping your dad clean out his attic for the renovation, I found something fascinating in an old filing cabinet." Uncle Pete's fork clattered to his plate. "What are you talking about?" Derek looked at Rosalie, who had been sitting quietly with her coloring book, taking everything in with those big brown eyes that, yes, looked exactly like mine. "Rosie, sweetheart," Derek said gently, "remember what Daddy asked you to get from the house?" My 6-year-old daughter nodded solemnly, stood up, and walked toward the house with her little pink backpack, leaving Jenny standing there with her mouth open, her next cruel comment dying on her lips. While Rosalie disappeared into the house, Jenny tried to regain control of the narrative. Oh, what now? Is Derek going to produce some fake evidence? Maybe a photoshopped picture? This is pathetic, really. Derek remained standing, his firefighter training evident in his controlled breathing and steady posture. Jenny, you talk so much about knowing your family history. Tell me, what do you actually know about your mother's life before she married Pete? Aunt Gloria's face went white. She grabbed Uncle Pete's arm hard enough to leave marks. We should go. Pete, get the car keys. No, Uncle Pete said, his voice strange and hollow. No, let him talk. I don't need to listen to this, Jenny said, but her voice wavered. My mother came from a good family in Connecticut. She went to finishing school. She met Dad at a charity golf tournament when she was 19. 20, Derek corrected. She was 20, but what about when she was 17? Grandma Lucille stood up from her chair, her cane tapping against the patio stones as she walked closer. It's time, Gloria. You've let this child become a monster with her judgment and her cruelty. She should know the truth. Mom, please, Aunt Gloria whispered, tears streaming down her face. Jenny looked between them, confusion replacing her earlier smugness. What truth? What are you talking about? That's when Rosalie returned, her pink backpack bouncing against her back. She walked through the crowd of relatives with the confidence only a child possesses, completely unaware of the bomb she was about to detonate. In her small hands, she carried a manila folder that looked ancient, its edges yellowed with age. Here, Daddy, she said proudly. I got it from the special box in your office, just like you said. Derek took the folder and kissed the top of her head. Thank you, sweetheart. Now go sit with Mommy. Rosalie climbed into my lap and I held her tight, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had no idea what Derek had found, but watching Jenny's face cycle through emotions like a broken slot machine, I knew it was something significant. Your mother, Derek said slowly, addressing Jenny but loud enough for everyone to hear, had a baby when she was 17, a little girl, born at St. Mary's Hospital in Hartford on March 15, 1986. That's impossible, Jenny said, but her voice cracked. My mother would never. She's always talked about purity, about waiting until marriage, about proper behavior. Your mother was human, Grandma Lucille said firmly, a scared teenage girl who made a choice that haunted her for 38 years. Derek opened the folder and pulled out several documents. When Pete asked me to help clean out the attic, he forgot this was up there. Or maybe he didn't know. It was in a box marked Tax Returns 1985 to 1987. But it wasn't tax returns. Uncle Pete sank into his chair. Gloria, is this true? Aunt Gloria was sobbing now, ugly, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. I was 17. My parents said I had no choice. They sent me away to have the baby and told everyone I was at boarding school. Jenny staggered backward like she'd been slapped. You had a baby? Before me? We were going to tell you, Uncle Pete said weakly, when you were older, then when you were in college, then when you got married. But there was never a right time. Derek continued, his voice gentle but firm. The baby was adopted by a family in New Haven. She grew up to become a social worker. Her name is Soledad Martinez. She kept her adoptive parents' name. This is insane, Jenny whispered. I have a sister? You do, Derek said, and she's tried to contact you 3 times in the past 2 years. Jenny's face went from pale to green. That woman who kept calling my office, the one who said she had personal family business to discuss. The one you had your assistant turn away because, and I quote from the email your assistant sent her, Ms. Whitfield does not engage with solicitors or individuals seeking financial assistance. Derek read from his phone. But she actually found you first, I asked, finally finding my voice. Derek nodded. Through the fire department's community outreach program, she volunteers with us for the annual toy drive. When she learned my last name and that I was married to a Caldwell, she put the pieces together. She asked me to help her connect with her birth family. "You've known this whole time?" Jenny asked, her voice barely audible. "For 6 weeks," Derek admitted. "I was going to tell you privately, Jenny. I really was. But then you started attacking my family, questioning my children's paternity, treating Nadine like she was beneath you, and I realized you needed to learn something about humility." Rosalie looked up at me confused. "Mommy, why is Cousin Jenny crying?" "Because sometimes," I said softly, "people who spend all their time judging others forget that everyone has secrets, even them." Rosalie, still sitting in my lap, pulled the yellowed birth certificate from her backpack and held it out toward Jenny. "Cousin Jenny, Daddy told me to ask you about your secret sister. He said this paper is important." Jenny's hands trembled as she took the document from my daughter's small fingers. The entire reunion watched as her eyes scanned the faded text, her lips moving silently as she read each line. The birth certificate was dated March 15, 1986, issued by St. Mary's Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. Mother's name, Gloria Ann Pemberton. Father's name, unknown. Baby girl Pemberton, 6 pounds, 4 ounces. "This can't be real," Jenny said, her voice hollow. "This has to be fake." "It's real, Jennifer," Grandma Lucille said, her voice cutting through the afternoon air. "I was there. I drove your mother to the hospital myself because her parents were too ashamed to be seen there. I held her hand while she labored for 14 hours. I was the first person to hold that baby girl after the nurse." Aunt Gloria had collapsed into a chair, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "Mom, you promised you'd never tell." "I promised I'd never tell as long as Jenny showed kindness and humility, but she's become cruel, Gloria. She's become everything we tried to protect her from becoming. The girl deserves to know, especially after what she's done." "What I've done?" Jenny's voice rose to a near shriek. "What have I done?" Derek pulled out his phone and began reading from saved emails. "January 10th this year, email from your assistant to Soledad Martinez. Ms. Whitfield has reviewed your request and determined that your claims of family connection are unsubstantiated. Please cease all contact attempts. February 23rd. Ms. Whitfield does not associate with individuals who cannot provide proper documentation of their claims. March 15th, on Soledad's birthday and the anniversary of her birth. Ms. Whitfield has instructed me to inform you that further contact attempts will be considered harassment." "I didn't know," Jenny screamed. "How was I supposed to know some random woman claiming to be related was telling the truth?" "Because she told you," Derek said simply. "In her first letter, she explained she was adopted, born at St. Mary's Hospital to Gloria Pemberton. She included her amended birth certificate, her adoption papers, everything. Your assistant forwarded it all to you. You responded, and I quote, 'This woman is clearly after money. Handle it.'" Preston, Jenny's husband, who had been silent this entire time, finally spoke. "Jenny, is this true? Did you turn away your own sister?" "I didn't know she was my sister." Jenny's perfectly applied makeup was running down her face in rivers. "She didn't look right. She didn't fit." "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Derek showed everyone a photo on his phone. "This is Soledad Martinez. She's a social worker in New Haven. She has a master's degree from Yale, which she earned on full scholarship. She runs a nonprofit that helps adopted children connect with their birth families. She's married to a public school teacher and has a daughter named Isabella." The woman in the photo was beautiful, with warm brown skin, dark curly hair, and a smile that radiated kindness. She looked nothing like Jenny's carefully straightened blonde hair and deliberately maintained paleness. "She's Hispanic," Jenny whispered. "Gloria's grandmother was Puerto Rican," Grandma Lucille announced. "Something Gloria's parents made her hide, something they were ashamed of. But blood tells, doesn't it, Jenny? The very bloodlines you're so obsessed with." Aunt Gloria looked up through her tears. "My mother made me bleach my hair from the time I was 12, made me stay out of the sun, told me never to mention my grandmother. When I got pregnant, when the father was a boy from my grandmother's neighborhood, they said the baby would ruin everything, that she'd be too dark, too obvious, too much of a reminder of the heritage they'd worked so hard to hide. So you gave away your own daughter because of her skin color. My mother's voice was ice cold, her disgust evident. I was 17, Gloria wailed. I had no choice. You had a choice for the last 38 years, Grandma Lucille corrected. And Jenny, you had a choice when Soledad reached out. You chose to reject her because she didn't look like she'd fit with your country club image. Jenny sank to her knees on the patio, the birth certificate crumpled in her fist. Where is she? Soledad, where is she now? Derek looked at his watch. She's at the coffee shop in town. She comes every year during the reunion weekend. She sits there, hoping maybe this year someone will want to meet her. She's been doing it for 5 years. 5 years? Jenny's voice broke completely. My sister has been 20 minutes away for 5 years? Every single reunion, Derek confirmed. Grandma Lucille has been meeting her secretly. So has your father, Jenny. He's been seeing his eldest daughter without telling you or your mother. Uncle Pete's confession came out in a whisper. I couldn't abandon her twice. Jenny looked at her father like she'd never seen him before. You've been meeting her, my sister, without telling me? Uncle Pete stood up, suddenly looking every one of his 67 years. I've been meeting Soledad for coffee once a month for the past 3 years. She doesn't ask for money, Jenny. She doesn't want our fortune. She just wanted to know where she came from. She wanted to see pictures of the family. She wanted to know if she had any siblings. And you told her about me? I told her everything. How proud I was of you. How successful you'd become. I showed her pictures of your twins. She was so happy to know she had a sister, nephews. She never once said a bitter word about being given away. Not once. Jenny turned to Derek, mascara streaked and desperate. Call her, please. Tell her I want to meet her. Tell her I'm sorry. Derek was already dialing. The patio fell silent except for the sound of the phone ringing through the speaker. Then a warm, gentle voice answered. Derek, is everything okay? Soledad, you're on speaker. Jenny knows everything. She wants to meet you. There was a long pause. She does? Jenny grabbed the phone from Derek's hand. Soledad? This is Jenny. I'm your sister. I'm so sorry. Please, can you come here? Can you come to the house? I've been waiting 5 years to hear your voice, Soledad said, and we could hear her crying. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. Jenny sat on the patio steps clutching the birth certificate, while Aunt Gloria tried to explain through her tears. Preston took the twins inside, away from the drama. The rest of the family sat in stunned silence, processing what they'd just witnessed. When the car pulled up, everyone turned to look. Soledad Martinez stepped out, and even from a distance you could see the resemblance to Aunt Gloria in her bone structure, her walk, the way she held her shoulders. She was wearing simple jeans and a blue cotton shirt, her curly hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was beautiful in an effortless way that Jenny, with all her expensive treatments and designer clothes, could never achieve. Jenny stood up and walked toward her. They met in the middle of the lawn, two sisters separated by 38 years of lies and 5 years of rejection. I'm sorry, Jenny said. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You couldn't have known, Soledad said graciously. But I'm here now. We're here now. They embraced, and the entire family watched as 38 years of secrets dissolved in that hug. Jenny clung to her older sister like she was drowning, and Soledad was the shore. When they finally pulled apart, Soledad looked at the rest of us. I know this is a shock. I don't want to intrude on your family reunion. You're not intruding, Grandma Lucille said firmly. You're family. You've always been family. Soledad's daughter, Isabella, who had been waiting in the car, finally emerged. She was about 16, confident and bright-eyed, looking remarkably like Jenny had at that age, before the nose job and the chemical straightening treatments. This is my daughter, Soledad said proudly. Isabella, meet your Aunt Jenny. Jenny looked at her niece, this beautiful girl who carried their shared blood, and began crying again. She looks just like my school pictures before I changed everything. That evening, as we all sat around the patio tables that had been pushed together to make room for 2 more place settings, I watched Jenny really see her family for the first time. She watched Soledad help my mother serve dessert without being asked. She watched Isabella play with Rosalie and Theo, teaching them a clapping game she'd learned at the community center where her mother worked. She watched her own twins, Addison and Blake, gravitate toward their new aunt, drawn by her warmth and genuine interest in their lives. "Nadine," Jenny said quietly, finding me by the dessert table, "I owe you an apology. What I said about your children, about Derek, it was cruel and wrong." "You were projecting," I said simply. "You were so obsessed with bloodlines and legitimacy, because somewhere deep down, you knew your own family was built on a lie." She nodded, tears starting again. "Soledad forgave me instantly. Can you?" I looked at my cousin, stripped of her armor of superiority, finally human in her imperfection. "We're family, Jenny. That's what family does." As the sun set over Lake Charlevoix, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Rosalie tugged on my sleeve. "Mommy, did I do good today?" "You did perfect, baby. You helped Cousin Jenny find her sister." Daddy says sometimes people need help seeing what's really important. I looked at Derek, my husband, who had orchestrated this entire revelation, not out of cruelty, but out of a desire for truth and justice. Daddy's pretty smart. "And Mommy?" Rosalie said, grinning her gap-toothed grin. "Now Cousin Jenny knows that all families have surprises. Just like you always say, everyone has a story we don't know about." That night, the Caldwell family reunion became something it had never been before. Honest. We shared stories that had been buried, admitted truths that had been hidden, and for the first time in 40 years, we were actually real with each other. Jenny learned that while she'd been investigating everyone else's authenticity, she'd been living the biggest lie of all. The cousin who questioned my children's paternity discovered she'd been rejecting her own sister's existence. The DNA she was so proud of carried a heritage her family had tried to erase. The perfection she'd built her identity on was as fake as the smile she wore in all those Instagram photos. Sometimes it takes a 6-year-old with a birth certificate to remind us that family isn't about bloodlines or bank accounts or tracing your ancestry to the Mayflower. It's about showing up, even when you've been rejected. It's about forgiveness, even when you've been hurt. It's about truth, even when lies would be easier. And sometimes, just sometimes, the secrets we bury have a way of surfacing exactly when they need to, delivered by a little girl in light-up sneakers who still believes the world can be fair. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below about your own family reunion experiences, the good, the bad, and the unexpected. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us that truth, no matter how difficult, is always better than a perfectly maintained lie.